What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Johners. This is episode 156, and today I've got the pleasure of speaking to the owner and the founder of DOA Wrestling, Alec Burnitt. So, Alec, great to have you on the Wrestling with Johners podcast, my friend. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm really good. It's a pleasure to be on. Get to talk about myself for a bit, so that's always fun.
Yes, more importantly, we talked about DOA, of course, and its rich history and kind of what it's up to nowadays. But I mean, we spoke a bit off air. Well, we spoke a bit off air, and it is making a return, isn't it? I know that we've been messaging, and on the 3rd of October, DOA does return back to action with the Murder Barn Massacre. So the title alone is very mysterious, Alec, and the hype video that I've seen doesn't give too much away. But what can you tell us about DOA's return to action on the 3rd of October with the Murder Barn Massacre?
So it's not a typical show. Firstly, so it's something that we that myself and Brett Meadows had been throwing some ideas back and forward. So he's done some great videos previously. Yes. Stuff with Jackie Hyde in the dog cage, and we talked about the murder barn and stuff, and I've kind of thrown it to him as to whether he thought we could do something a little bit lengthier within that concept of the murder barn, we threw some ideas back and forward and put something together that I've seen the finished thing now, and it's different. It's very different to. It
sounds very cinematic. It sounds. I mean, are there traditional matches involved, or tell us a bit more about kind of the concept? Is it cinematic, or is it based around a traditional show with no fans in a barn? I don't know.
I don't. It's really difficult because it's been intentional to not give too much away. I think. It's a kind of mixture of those two things, but at the same time, I don't think when you say cinematic, and I've seen what a lot of companies have done, particularly like the big companies have done cinematic stuff. Yes. I don't think it's like anything that anyone else has done. It obviously is. It's not for kids. It's an adult presentation, but it's different, and it's unlike anything that I've seen. It'll be interesting to see how many people copy us, but I'm really excited for people to see it, to be honest.
I'm really, really intrigued. And where can my listeners or viewers of the Wrestling with Johners podcast see this event? So obviously it goes out, it's live on the 3rd of October. So just a couple of weeks around the corner. Yep. But where can they actually go out and see the event? Is it on demand? Is it DVD only? Tell us a bit more about that.
So it's free to watch on the DOA YouTube channel, and it goes live at 7:30 p.m. on the 3rd of October. So we've done that 7:30 because that's traditionally the time that all of our shows start on a Saturday night. So that's the intent behind that. So 7:30 on the 3rd of October, which the date is kind of falls on what would be our 7-year anniversary as well. So it kind of means we're putting at least something out to the fans to kind of celebrate that in a way. The initial plan was to do it around Halloween, but I'm impatient, so we settled on doing it on the 3rd of October. But it's completely different to anything that I've seen, and I think people are gonna really like it.
Awesome. We're getting ahead of the game as well, because a lot of companies are coming back into action, but more around the Halloween time, the end of the month. You're kind of getting ahead of the game by releasing it on the anniversary, the 3rd of October. So that's going to be really, really cool. Now, I don't know if you saw it, but a couple of weeks ago, we had Taylor Essex on the podcast, and he mentioned one half of the Rebellion, DOA Tag Team Champions, of course. Now, he mentioned that
two-time.
Two-time, and I did mention that on the podcast. But Taylor mentioned on during our interview that DOA are one of the few companies that aren't vacating their championships during this kind of pandemic downtime. Now, some companies are vacating their championships and essentially starting again when they do come back into action. DOA aren't doing that. They're keeping all of their champions from the end of 2019 going into early 2020. So what was the kind of decision-making process behind that and behind wanting to keep your current champions through to when you return?
To be honest, vacating them never actually crossed my mind. It doesn't really seem like an option. I don't know why the people that were holding them when shows stopped, if in my head they were the right people, why they would suddenly not be when nothing's changed on a personal, professional level, because we haven't had any shows. So in my head they were the right people then, so they're the right people now. They've earned them. That's why I've put them in that position, because I feel they deserve that. So why I don't see any reason why I would take that away from them. I mean, I get it to an extent, why some places have done it, but I mean, unless you're planning on sort of drastically changing your roster as such, then or you don't plan to use someone when you do return, if they're not going to be featured on your show, then if you're going to come back and your champion is still featured on your show, why would you take the belt away from that person? It's, if you no longer want them to hold the belt, then at least give them the job of dropping it when shows come back. I feel it devalues the belts a little bit, to just take them off of people. It's my opinion, but
totally agree. You can obviously understand where I'm coming from. There are a few companies that do want to start afresh and have vacated all their championships. DOA certainly stand out as not being one of those.
Well for WCW in 2000.
no, it really didn't.
Exactly.
But let's talk about some of your current champions then on DOA, because we've obviously got the Rebellion as the tag team, the two-time tag team champions of DOA. But talk to us about some of your champions. We've obviously got the Rebellion with Jack and with Taylor, of course. Talk to us about your DOA UK Heavyweight Champion, your Women's Champion. Of course, you got the Adrenaline Championship in DOA as well. So tell us about some of your champions that are holding the belts at the moment then.
So just to kind of run through them, as you just did. So obviously the Rebellion, who, in my opinion, even though they get around a bit, sort of south of England and stuff, but I still feel like they're massively underrated. I think they're just really good, and they're good lads. Always work hard, always have good matches. I really enjoy working with them. So myself on the show, as the kind of booker man, I get to manage them, which is really, really fun for me. We have a really good time with that, or at least I do. And they tell me that they enjoy it, but they would tell me that. So they're not going to tell the promoter that they don't enjoy it. When he's.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do.
Yeah, I get along really well with them, and they're one of the things that I've noticed with them over the past sort of. I'm not really going to count the last 6 months, because that doesn't count. But prior to that, the kind of year and a half sort of time is that they've become really, really consistent as a tag team. Which is really important, and I've seen them have good matches with varied opponents. So it's not just matches against other sort of cruiserweight sized teams. They've had some really good matches with a real mixed bag of teams. So really, really good and good guys as well. So I hope that when shows do come back, that they can kick on elsewhere as well. Heavyweight champion, Winston. So one of the things I'm kind of most proud of is the fact that he debuted in 2017 for DOA.
Right.
Won the championship on the very last show before the lockdown, and in that 3 years, never been pinned, never submitted. Finally won the championship, I mean, that's
what a great story.
That's strong, right?
Yeah.
Sort of long term kept him very strong. And yeah, there's not many 6'9" guys on the British scene. There's not many guys
anywhere.
his size. Yeah, exactly. So that, he's unique in that sense, but he's a good guy. I always spent a lot of time back and forward between here and Canada, and toured all over there. He's again reliable and very good. Madison Miles has been nearly approaching 2 years with the women's championship. Again, never been beaten in a DOA ring. She lost the championship in Canada and won it back the night after, so I don't think she counts that as a technically two-time champion. That doesn't count. But yeah, no, she's kind of held that championship and really kind of taken the division as her own, really, which has been great. Again, she's great to work with. And yeah, the adrenaline division, which is always really fun. Dexter currently holds that title, a guy I believe you're familiar with. And he's great. He came in, worked really hard. He originally came in as part of the Purge group with Damien on the shows, and then kind of broke away from that. And yeah, he's been doing great, constantly good matches. And he's a pleasure to work with as well.
Awesome. So tell us a bit about your wrestling fandom then, Alec, because a lot of people that I interview. This is it. We'll end the interview now. But a lot of people that I interview, they kind of see it at an early age, either from a school friend or maybe family members might be into it, cousins or brothers, sisters. Yeah. How did you first come across pro wrestling? I'm guessing it was from an early age, but can you remember kind of how you were introduced to pro wrestling and kind of what was going through your mind when you first clapped eyes on it?
So I was really young, so I don't really know what was going through my mind as such. I have sort of memories being really young and seeing. I remember my favorite as a kid was Jake the Snake. Yeah. And then there was guys Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Bret Hart. The Undertaker just came in, so it's sort of early 90s.
Larger than life characters.
Yeah, absolutely. Which kind of put a little bit of his stamp on me, I guess. Always been a fan of the big characters as opposed to, I don't want to say as opposed to good wrestlers, because obviously that's just as big a part of it, but. Yeah, that's kind of my first memories, and I kind of didn't watch it that much. And then sort of late 90s, went over to a friend's house, and he put Raw on, and I think it was some hardcore title 24/7 deal that I remember. I think it was Boss Man and like Al Snow or something brawling backstage or something, and I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. So I'd go around. It showed on like Sky Sports on a Friday night, so I'd go around there on a Friday night and watch Raw. And then I managed to find on our Skybox at home. I managed to find they used to have TNT programming on a different station, but they used to have
I think it went from the Cartoon Network through, and then it changed to TNT in the evening. So I know exactly what you're
so I managed to find Nitro on the early hours of the morning. So I'd kind of sneak down in the middle of the night, and put the TV on downstairs on like volume 1, and watch Nitro. So I was a big sort of WCW guy because I go to those lengths and that effort to watch it. And then they showed like WCW Worldwide on Channel 5, which was dreadful, really, and Chair Shot, and they bring up the old Batman kind of kapow and stuff, But I loved it. I was kind of hooked, and then yeah, it kind of became a bit of an obsession.
Yeah, and
I
how would you say your kind of wrestling tastes have changed or matured over the years? I'm guessing you still, because you grew up with it, a fan of the WWE or WWF. But I'm guessing you kind of matured more into, I don't know, more indie stuff. Tell us about how your wrestling taste changed over the years, then, Alec.
I'd say I've never been a big, strangely, never been a big kind of indie wrestling. I've never really followed a lot of indie wrestling.
Yeah.
So once WCW folded, I was constantly looking for the next sort of second company, if that makes sense.
The next number two. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was. I remember watching and reading up on World Wrestling All Stars, who did like a tour of Australia with like Bret Hart and Sting and stuff like that, and I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. That could be the next one. And I was watching TNA when it first started, and yeah, just constantly, I don't know, we were just kind of rooting for the underdog or what, but there was a lot of guys that didn't join WWE that I was a big fan of, so I was constantly looking as to where they were, who weren't necessarily the kind of indie darlings and stuff. I didn't get into like Ring of Honor, for example. I didn't get into that. That wasn't really my cup of tea. I'm sure there was loads of really cool matches happening all over the place, but yeah,
Ring of Honor kind of passed me by as well, to be honest with you, until you become more familiar with, the wrestlers that have since become big that were previously in Ring of Honor. Then you go back and search them out, but it passed me by at the time. It passed me back at the time.
I think because I was always a bigger fan of the big characters and stuff, the big gimmicks and stuff. Because of that, it never really appealed to me. So I guess that's where my sort of influence is now. Is in characters. Like, I don't like having two people on the show who look similar. Right. Like if someone comes, like I obviously receive people looking for bookings and stuff, and they'll send me pictures and matches and things to try and get onto DOA shows, and I look at it and I go, oh, okay, you've got long hair and a beard. Well, I've already got a guy with long hair and a beard, so I don't need another guy with long hair and a beard, because it waters down the first guy. So I don't like having two people that are too similar. But that then leads to, well, there's lots of guys who are very talented, but they're a guy in a pair of trunks who is a wrestler. That's their character, is, I am a wrestler. That, to me, that's not a character, really. That's just, and that doesn't really appeal to me. And if you've got one guy whose character is, plain, I get in there and I wrestle, that then becomes unique because he's surrounded by big characters. I don't know if that makes any sense at all. I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but
no.
But yeah, I've always been kind of drawn to the bigger characters. Hence, why guys like Damien and stuff have been, a big part of the DOA shows for so many years, because it's just pure wrestling to me,
Yeah, no, Alec. I mean, we've come home from work today, and we've heard the sad news, or the sad loss of Road Warrior Animal. Passed away very early, at a very young age of just 60 years old.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, you, from what you've told me, you kind of grew up a wrestling fan through the early, mid, and late 90s, and you must have kind of seen a few matches or a fair bit of the Road Warrior or Legion of Doom history. Are there any kind of moments or memories that kind of stand out to you from both Animal and Hawk as the Legion of Doom from the 90s, or when you were kind of watching them on TV then, Alec?
Well, I think my first kind of memories of the Road Warriors, or Legion of Doom as I knew them originally, because it was sort of early 90s, they're in WWF, and I remember them, but I was so young that I just remember what they look like and things, and I've gone back and watched them since.
Of course.
But I knew that they just had this kind of aura to them, I guess. So many other teams tried to kind of replicate that, but they just didn't have the same. They were just copies. They weren't the real thing, which I guess every kind of big time act that's come along has 1,000 copycats that try and replicate the same thing, but you couldn't with them. I remember them turning up. One of my favorite memories, I guess, would be sort of 2003. So it would have been the last time that Hawk wrestled in WWE.
Yeah.
So it was a one-off thing. So it was RVD and Kane as the tag champions against LOD, and it was completely out of nowhere. This was like prime me watching WWE, sort of 2003 time, and I lost my mind. It was crazy. It was I was convinced in my head the moment they came out. I was like, well, clearly they're going to win. Road Warriors don't lose. But they came out, they lost, and then never had another WWE match, which is pretty sad. Hawk died shortly after, I think. So
they had a strange relationship with WWE or WWF, and a strange run with them. And certainly their early run in the kind of early 90s, they came in. I think in was it late 1990, won the championships in 91. Then I think Hawk got suspended. They came back at WrestleMania 8, and then they was there against Money Inc. at SummerSlam 92, which I was at, coming down on them Harleys. So that's certainly one of my memories, and probably the only time I've actually seen him in the flesh was at SummerSlam on them Harleys. But some great memories, and you can watch all these documentaries about them, and through the 80s and 90s, they were just, speaking of larger than life characters, Alec, that they were the epitome of the larger than life tag team.
Yeah, absolutely, they were. I think, like I say, they were perfect in that big, larger-than-life, colourful thing of the early 90s WWF. Yeah. That's exactly what I remember as a kid. But actually, in going back and watching, so I watch loads of kind of old stuff from before I was born. I watch more of that sort of stuff than I do modern day stuff, and watching their sort of NWA run, and their matches with like the Midnight Express and scaffold matches, and even their sort of AWA run there, and and they were very much a lot less cartoony prior to
legitimate
to WWF.
badasses.
Yeah, exactly. So I think WWE or WWF at the time, I think I kind of maybe watered them down a little bit, but it sticks in your mind for sure, like their run there. But yeah, their stuff in the NWA was pretty epic.
Definitely, and Animal will be sadly missed. He's up there now with Hawk doing doomsday devices on all the other fallen wrestlers, I'm sure. But let's talk about DOA then, because obviously we spoke a bit about your wrestling fandom and some of the characters that you grew up watching. Mm-hmm. But what was that kind of the inspirational moment, or kind of the moment that prompted you to think, I could do this myself, I could get into the business, or maybe start my own promotion? Was there like a moment, or was it building for a long period of time? How did the idea of DOA start?
I'm an idiot, basically. I don't know if it was the best or worst decision I've ever made. Yeah, so I'd moved. I moved location where I was living, and I got involved with WAW in Norwich. Right. So I was doing some commentary and stuff for them, which is something that I've always really enjoyed and still do to this day. I don't do it for DOA, strangely, because I'm just sit in one spot during one of my shows. It's kind of impossible because I've constantly got to be doing other things, so I don't get to do it for my own shows. So I still do that, and I enjoyed doing commentary. And the more I was involved there, I guess I kind of maybe got ahead of myself a little bit. So I had loads of ideas. Like, I'd be at the shows and I'd have a million ideas for every different person on the roster, and I'd be pitching all these ideas to everybody that would listen. And I already thought that I knew better than everyone that had ever been doing it, and I'd been doing it 5 minutes, or I'd been there 5 minutes. I hadn't ever been a booker or or anything. I'd been doing commentary for a couple of shows, but I guess I was just over enthusiastic, maybe, and that might have run a couple of people the wrong way, rubbed them the wrong way. So I was kind of given not an ultimatum as such, but I was kind of almost dared, if you think you can do better, kind of
and
thing.
Then do it. Yeah.
And that makes it sound a bit more negative than it was. I mean, like the guys at WAW, they never sort of closed the door to me or anything. I've had our moments, but I would never close the door. No. But it was very much in terms of creative ideas and things like that. If you want to do that, then go and try and do that. And I don't think, realistically, they I guess, in my opinion of it, was that they thought I'd either not bother and I wouldn't do it, or I'd do it and I'd fail, and then I'd realise how difficult it was, and then I'd shut my mouth and just get on with doing some commentary or something, But it was one of those things I never really thought I always would have loved to have done, but never realistically thought it would happen. And then it was kind of why not? Why can't I do this?
Yeah. And I'm guessing that you had this kind of realization back in 2013, because your first show, you said that we're approaching the 7th-year anniversary, so the first show would have been in October 2013. So how long kind of in the planning stage was the first show before it went live? Was it a short period of time or a matter of months? How long did it take to kind of put it all together and maybe find the talent, build the card, find the venue, etc.?
It was maybe 6 months or so, maybe.
Right.
I had a kind of mixture of guys on that first show. There's some that I knew from WAW, some of those that I got along with really well, who were always really encouraging. Whether they were encouraging because it would result in them getting more bookings, or whether they were encouraging because they actually believed in me is up for debate. But and then I was kind of trying to keep my eye out for other guys and stuff, but I didn't know people. I only knew who I knew from WAW. So I was kind of trying to reach out to a few people and trying to put a unique show together. And it was at the time I was really happy with how the first show went. Looking back on it now, it's like, it could have looked better. But you're never going to get it perfect when you first go, are you?
It's like looking back at some of my early podcasts. I know exactly what you're saying. But I mean, obviously you were very pleased with it at the time. I'm guessing the fans were happy with the product, and everyone backstage or everybody involved was happy with the product. But I'm guessing it was also a bit of a learning curve as well. What did you kind of learn over them first few shows, or maybe the first year? And when did you kind of feel like you were starting to find your feet and could kind of enjoy promoting or producing a show without feeling the stress of the first couple of shows in, Alec?
I don't think I've ever fully got the hang of not feeling the stress. I mean, it's not, this isn't as obvious now because my hair's grown a bit, but I've been given the nickname by the guys on the shows as the angry potato.
Right.
So I used to have the shaved head. So looked like an angry potato, and Brett's the worst for that. Definitely. I think he enjoys seeing me stressing out a little bit. Yeah, I don't think I'll ever not stress about it. Well, I'm not an angry potato. I don't get angry with people,
no.
But people can kind of see me getting a little bit agitated, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I guess it's because I care about what I'm doing, I guess. But in terms of lessons, I learned all of them. Yeah, I guess initially because a lot of people in my ear, so I was taking advice from a lot of people that maybe I shouldn't have taken advice from early on. But you don't necessarily know any better, so then you sort of learn who you can and can't trust. Over that first year, we got a bunch of stuff right, and we got loads wrong.
Only natural, I suppose.
Yeah. I was learning as I went along, and I'm sure there was plenty of people that have worked with me, hopefully not in recent times, but in those first couple of years, who maybe came in and thought, I'm sure this guy knows what he's doing. Especially on those first few, I was just kind of relying on other people's sort of advice and things. Hang on, my computer's just doing something weird.
That's fine. I can still hear and see you. That's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're back. Right, so I don't know. I learned a lot of lessons and made a lot of mistakes, but I think that's all part of it. In terms of feeling more comfortable, I guess I'd say there was definitely a kind of upswing in the consistency. Kind of maybe 2017, maybe. Right. I felt like that, and the following year were really good in terms of the stories. We had people really invested in the stories. The kind of main being kind of the rise of like Ash Draven through the shows. And we had a really good kind of story running with him. And then Peter Nixon had been injured and came back, and we did this big reveal. Draven had stolen the title. Nixon got injured. Several months later, Draven's just defended the title in the main event of a show, and the entire show, one of the fans was sitting there watching the show wearing a Lapaka mask. And at the end of the show, the fan jumps in the ring, rips the mask off, and it's Nixon, and no one knew he'd been sat watching the entire show with all the fans the whole night. Still one of my favorite moments. He whipped that mask off, place went nuts. It was really cool. But yeah, that story, and then the kind of follow on from that, where we kind of double turned Draven and myself, as I was kind of ring announcing, right, and I had no plans to be a kind of character on the show at all, and then Ash just started referencing me on the show as the booker man, the owner, that and people knew that I was, but we never mentioned it on the shows. We never, But he started doing it in promos and kind of and getting in my face a little bit and calling attention to it, and every time he did it, people sort of reacted that little bit more and kind of like, oh, this is a bit, and it kind of simmered away for a bit, and then we're like, we might be onto something here. So then we ended up doing the big double turn and the Cambridge screw job, as it was kind of called, and
awesome.
I'd say sort of 2017 is where I kind of felt like DOA started to really find its feet. And then into 2018 was a really strong year.
Well, I was going to say, Alec, because your first full year, 2013, 2014, you only ran 5 shows. But as you kind of go through the years, I mean, in 2016 you ran 11 shows. 2017 you ran 14 shows, and 2018 you ran 15 shows. So you're really ramping up as the years were going on. Was there a conscious decision to kind of put on more shows? I know that around that time, 2016, 17 and 18, British wrestling was kind of at an all-time high. There was a real boom period, and I'm sure DOA were feeling the kind of positive effects of that. But was there a conscious decision to kind of really ramp up the number of shows each year?
Kinda, I guess. I think that one of the main things with me is that if there's maybe, if you're running every 3 months, 4 months or whatever, you can put loads of hype behind, those shows, your months and months of build up and everything. But I always find that in my head that maybe if you've got 4-month gap or 3-month gap between shows, then the angles that you run on one show have almost gone cold by the time you get to the next one. And I'm always like, while people are hot on something, let's follow it up. Let's get to the next chapter of this story. Let's evolve these characters. Let's keep things moving. And sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes it's not. I mean, some people will argue that it's not the best way to do things. It's my way of doing things. I just feel like I need to kick those stories and keep them rolling and keep them going and keep them
fresh and relevant, and people coming through their doors. That's absolutely fantastic. And we mentioned earlier, we touched on it earlier, some of the names that are closely associated with DOA from the very beginning through to modern times, you could say. And I've got a list of names here with the likes of Peter Nixon, Brett Meadows or Damien, Danny Darko, Ash Draven, Big Effing Joe, and so many more that have had this great relationship with DOA over the years. Tell us about some of these names and why they've been such a big part of DOA's history. And although you've obviously got new and fresh talent coming in every so often, these have kind of been the mainstays or the foundation of the group, really, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we've had a really good, solid kind of core of guys, and then I think one of the things that we've done well is a constant kind of revolving door around the rest of the show. So the show as a whole, I don't feel gets stale, which is another one of the challenges of running as often, is making sure that things don't get stale. So I mean, the ones you mentioned, obviously Damien, I think Damien and Jackie Hyde, I think, are probably the two that have done the most shows, most DOA shows, I think. And I believe Peter Nixon, Brad Slayer, and Doan are the only remaining guys from show 1, and Ollie Dean on commentary. I think they're the only ones from show 1 that are still kicking around. But yeah, like, those guys have all been really sort of loyal as well. They all want, they're all in it for the right reasons. They all want it to succeed. They all want to see it get bigger and better and be a part of it. I'd say several of those would call sort of DOA kind of home, I guess. And they're all good lads. They're all I enjoy working with all of them.
Definitely. And DOA certainly seems to have developed its own identity within the British wrestling landscape over the years. But for any of my listeners that might not be too familiar with DOA, might not have come across it, but are curious to find out more about DOA, how would you describe DOA to somebody that's fairly new to the product?
I'd say it's character-driven, story-based wrestling. That offers a little bit of everything that you could be, whatever you're a fan of, you'll find some of it. I feel like we've got some really good heavyweights. Obviously, you look at Winston and Damien and Big Joe and those guys. So we've got some big heavyweights. We've got the adrenaline division for those who are into a more sort of cruiserweight style. Great tag wrestling, really good like women's wrestling.
Of course,
like I say, big characters: Jackie Hyde, Charles Crowley, it's just a whole big mixture, and I think it's, for me, it's definitely, you could turn up to a DOA show having never watched DOA before, and despite it being story driven, it wouldn't be confusing.
Right.
We make sure that the shows are effective enough that if you've never seen these characters before, you'd quickly get established, what's what and who's who, and it wouldn't be confusing, but at the same time it's not kind of dumbed down so that there's no story to follow. Like some of the stories, like I said, with the Nixon and Draven story, which led into Draven Booker Man thing. The Purge has been a massive part of what we've done, which started as one thing and kind of merged into something else, and we kind of, it amazes me sometimes when you do little story things, and fans pick up on little callbacks to something from several years ago, and I like putting those little callbacks in there for those that are paying attention, which you don't need to know in order to enjoy what's going on, but to see fans that come up to you after a show and they're like, oh yeah, I see what you did there with that, I remember that from 3 years ago, and you're like, wow, it's probably only me and you, mate. So I'd say it's story driven, character, like, character driven wrestling, and a little bit of a variety show, I think.
Yeah, so if you like your kind of storyline type wrestling groups, then DOA is definitely for you. But
yeah, sure.
Let's talk about one wrestler in particular, if we can. A certain Kip Sabian, who's very familiar with a lot of people around the wrestling world, and making a bit of a name for himself over in the States with AEW, of course. Now, he's originally from the east of England, over in Norwich, of course, and he also kind of was a reasonably big part, or started his career around the same time as when DOA started, around 2013. So I know that he's had a bit of a career with DOA and a bit of a history with DOA. And in fact, I think you mentioned off there that he had his final independent date with DOA back last July, when he had a match against Peter Nixon. And I know that they've been previously tag team champions, and they've had a bit of a rivalry before. And Kip was there with Penelope Ford. So tell us about Kip Sabian. Having seen him develop throughout the years and wrestle regularly for DOA, it must have been a real thrill to yourself, kind of seeing somebody really kind of make it over in the States for a big promotion like AEW, considering the history he's had with DOA then, Alec.
I can't stand him. He was one of the first people that I met at WAW in 2012. And then when he was tagging with Brad Slayer as Special Edition, those guys were the first DOA tag champions, won those on the first DOA show.
Yeah. So
he was there from the very start, and like you said, held the tag titles with Peter Nixon. They had some really good matches as a team, and then it was kind of, he'd wrestle for me on and off, right up until he went to America. So he's had some really good matches, most of which are now on our YouTube channel. There's a bunch on there. There's a couple more that will be going up as well. I actually worked like my day job with Kip as well for several years.
Okay.
And that was a pain. He won't even deny he's an annoying person, especially when you have to spend 40 hours a week with him. But
if he's anything like his character on TV, then I'm sure, yeah.
Oh, he's worse. He's worse. He's doing really well. So he mentioned to me about being available to do the Peter Nixon's Beach Ball Mania 2 last year, and it kind of coincided with it being just before he went. So it happened to be his last UK indie show before moving, so that was pretty cool. So yeah, we kind of capped that off. Him and Peter Nixon, they had a really good match. That one is up on our YouTube channel, so get on there and subscribe while you're there. And yeah, that was a really good match. Penelope Ford was with him, which just kind of happened. She was there that day, you know, so it's like, why not?
More star power.
Yeah. So we that was completely unadvertised that she was going to be there. That wasn't part of the plan, but you know, she was there. So you know, we were actually at the we'd spent the day at the Norwich Pride Festival, Pride March thing that day. So Brad Slayer, who obviously was tag partners with and is his best friend, at the time was the DOA Heavyweight Champion. He was in the main event that night as well. So we were at the Pride Festival, and Brad was one of the speakers there. So that was really cool. It was a good day overall, getting to be a part of that with him, and then heading off to Cambridge and having a really good night there. There was definitely a lively kind of party atmosphere, and it was good to give him a bit of a send off. Yeah, there was, and he's doing well. I don't.
Yeah, he's getting featured regularly on Dynamite, and
I'd be lying. I'd be lying if I said I watched it. I try and keep up to date with what he's up to. But you know, and I watch sort of his stuff. I don't watch a lot of AEW now, but I'll keep up to date with what he's doing, and kind of support him. But yeah.
What would you say is some of your maybe favourite matches since starting DOA back in 2013 through to now? What are some of your favourite matches that really stand out to you?
It's weird because I always kind of there have been some matches in particular that do stand out. So I'd say there's so many.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
Yeah. No, it's cool. So I'd say the first Ash Draven against Ashley Dunn match in Bury St Edmunds. That was really cool. It's the first time Ashley Dunn had been on the show for us. And they absolutely smashed it. And then some stand out. So Danny Darko and Brad Slayer in Cambridge. I still say that's Danny Darko's best DOA match. There are there's loads. There is loads that I'm obviously really happy with, but I don't know. I tend to remember moments more than matches.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of where my mentality is as well with the shows. It's like, what are the moments it's the moments that people remember, not necessarily the matches. And it's not always true, but I kind of try to, if sometimes you'll look at a match and think, well, you know, some of the guys, sometimes they come back and they're not, you know, they're like, we messed this bit up, or, you know, or this didn't go great or whatever. But I look at it and go, well, how did the crowd react, you know, in the moments that, that matter to the story, you know, the bigger picture. So yeah, I look at moments more than matches. So I'd say in that regard, me screwing Ash Draven stands out in my head. It still makes me laugh that the fans still expect me to wrestle at some point. It's like, not happening.
Who knows?
So Jackie Hyde kind of had been he'd been locked in the dog cage. We did the first little Murder Barn thing that Damien with Jackie Hyde locked in the dog cage, and he was being sort of dragged around in a straitjacket and things, and him kind of escaping the straitjacket and stuff, and the reaction that got. The original lineup of the Purge reuniting at Yarmageddon 13 was another big one. Yeah, there's been loads, but again, I tend to remember flashes of moments as opposed to matches. Ash Draven cashing in on Doug Williams was pretty cool. Yeah, Jody Fleisch winning the Adrenaline title kind of stands out to me as well. So I was a big fan of his, so it was really cool to have him, you know, holding that title was pretty cool on a personal level. So
awesome. And we mentioned at the top of the show the show on the 3rd of October, the Murder Barn Massacre. Any other kind of shows planned before the end of the year, or are you going to try and focus more on the new year 2021 and hopefully get some fans back in an arena? Any plans beyond October that you can tell us about?
Yeah, the big focus at the minute is obviously the 3rd of October. So I want everybody to watch it. Yeah, so that's the main focus right now. Obviously, some of the rules have kind of up in the air at the moment, and things are changing again, not for the better. So looks like obviously the second wave and stuff is really kind of kicking in, and the rules are changing and throwing a spanner in the works maybe for those that were planning on coming back over the coming weeks. So we don't have anything in the diary. I wish I could sit here and say, oh yeah, we you know, big exclusive, we're going to return on this date or whatever, but I don't want to announce something and then have to cancel it, because I don't want to put the effort into promoting something that I'm not 100% sure is going to go ahead. So yeah, it sucks at the minute, but at the same time, I'm looking forward to when we can come back.
Of course.
And I've got some cool stuff planned that I think people are going to like, but yeah, I can't give you a date, unfortunately. I wish I could.
It's all to look forward to. So speaking of looking forward to, let's say October the 3rd is the big date. We've got the Murder Barn Massacre going. Well, it's going to be airing 7:30 on the 3rd, Saturday the 3rd of October. And of course, the link to DOA's YouTube channel will be in the description to this video or podcast. So click into that, click on that, and I think it's already set up as a premiere or something, so we can set a reminder.
So it'll be
there 7:30.
We'll be sharing the link, and obviously you can pop that in there for people to check that out. It's already set up, so it'll premiere 7:30 on the 3rd. But yeah, head over to the YouTube channel and check out all the stuff that's there. We've been throughout the whole pandemic, we've been trying to get loads of sort of old matches and things on there. So we've got a playlist, like DOA flashback playlist that's got like over 60 matches at the minute, but we're adding to that all the time. And then there's like a DOA moments playlist, and with some of the cool stuff. So yeah, there's plenty of stuff on there. So I'd urge people to go and check out the last 2 shows that we did. All the matches from those 2 shows to kind of get you caught up are up on there. So I'd urge people to go and check all that stuff out. Subscribe as well, because that's obviously helps us along, and get ready for Murder Barn Massacre, because it's not going to be like anything you've ever seen.
Wait. Absolutely can't wait, and I'm definitely going to be tuning in for that. But Alec, before we let you go, final opportunity. I'm going to put you on the spot again. Can you remember all the socials for DOA, where we can find you on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram? If any of my listeners want to reach out and say hi and find out more about DOA.
Yeah, so I think it's DOAwrestling.co.uk is the website, although there's not a great deal of new content on there at the moment, with no shows. Facebook.com/DOA Wrestling. All the sort of news and a lot of the hype for Murder Barn is all on there as well. Twitter is @DOA Wrestling UK, and the Instagram is DOA_wrestling_. UK. But yeah, just type DOA Wrestling into any of them, and we're the first thing that pops up. So yeah, and same goes for YouTube as well. So type in DOA Wrestling, and there we are.
There we go. We'll make sure that all the links are attached to the description of this podcast. Just click into the description and they'll all be there. But Alec, it's been great speaking to you. Can't wait for the Murder Barn Massacre on the 3rd of October. It's going to be a fantastic show. Urge all of my listeners and viewers to check that out. But thank you for coming on the Wrestling with Johners podcast, my friend.
No worries. Yeah, can't wait for everyone to see it and see people's reaction and what they think of it as well. So yeah, thanks for having me.